Welcome to Potential Unlocked, a stacked coaching podcast. On today's episode, we have with us my former nutrition mentor, Ryan Stevens. In today's episode, we discuss why the scale might not be moving despite the fact that you are counting and tracking your calories. We also talk about many more tips and tricks when it comes to your fitness and nutrition journey. If you're interested in checking us out on Instagram or Facebook, it's @StackedCoaching. If you're interested in booking a free nutrition consultation, check out www.stackedcoaching.com. Enjoy the episode. Hey everybody, welcome to Potential Unlocked, a stack coaching podcast. I have with us Ryan Stevens, my mentor in the past. Ryan, you're a current nutrition coach, correct? With
Superhuman, John Madsen.
Yeah, awesome. How long have you been coaching nutrition?
Geez. So I did my undergrad in sport and exercise science. Then at that point, I was working in a gym on the floor, and we was personal training, started out in nutrition. Then I did my master's. And again, whilst I was doing that, I was just working in the gym all through that time. And then I was lucky enough to get a job working online for another American company. And then that's where we met, right?
Yeah.
And then more recently, I was coaching there for 2 years, I believe. And then for the past 6-7 months, I've moved now on to Superhuman, which is another company. So since I was like 18, so it's been a long old journey in fitness for sure.
You also write training programs as well for people, correct?
Correct. That was like when I first started this current role, that was my main role, just writing out training programs for all the clients and stuff. Yeah.
Is it just aesthetic based, or is there any performance related to it?
So when we have clients sign up, they'll fill out like a pre-questionnaire, like with all their goals, etc., any injuries. Like, believe it or not, like most clients now, they train at home, so like equipment is limited too. So like we'll ask a series of questions, and then we'll base their program around them. Like our main goal is to integrate it into their lifestyle rather than interject it, right? So people who are busy just can't get to the gym, say 3-4 days a week, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I've got like clients who can only train once a week. So if they can get to the gym once a week, they'll do one session in the gym. They may do some home bodyweight workout as well. So we work with them because there's always something we can do, right? So, but they're in terms of like goals, we have clients who are like performance based, some are aesthetic based, some are like full-time mums as well.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You have done some bodybuilding shows, right?
Correct. So I used to be a powerlifter before I started bodybuilding. So some people in the powerlifting world, they say I went over to the dark side. So like from, I would say 15 to 19, I was doing powerlifting. I think I did like 5 or 6 shows. And then when I was in uni, I did a bodybuilding show. I was meant to do it the year before, but my wife gave me a hard time because I was getting married that year as well. And by the way, because I didn't know what I was getting myself into at that point, I didn't know how hard it was going to be. Best decision I ever made to delay it a year. It was literally just like on a bucket list thing. It was purely one show that I wanted to do, and that was it, because I actually won that show and then got invited to the British. And I literally said, I don't want to go. I just went traveling to Thailand for 2 weeks instead. So it was like one show, one and done, whether I came last, came first. I just bucket list tick and then move on.
What was that experience like? Was it miserable? Like,
yes. So,
yeah.
So Ben Oliver, right? One of my good friend mentor, so great guy. So he was actually overseeing my prep as well, because when you go to like the last, I would say 6 weeks, like your mind plays tricks on you. Like, oh, I can eat this, I can't. And it's like you just need a second pair of eyes to say, stop thinking stupid. But like I'll always remember this. So there's like a route where I walk my dog like a couple of times a day, and there's several benches on the route. When I was like 2 weeks out, I couldn't do the full route without sitting down.
That's crazy.
Absolutely insane. One of the most, something I'll never forget that is that, because like the route is, I was just going on a slow walk with my dog, throw the ball, but I was like 2 weeks out, I like had to sit down on the bench.
Did you tell me something about the bottom of your feet too?
Yeah. So it was like no fat left on the bottom of my feet. Like I was cold all the time. Like my feet were hurting. Like in my house where like you've got tiled floor, I couldn't
Right.
walk barefoot.
What do you think your body fat percentage was like when you got on stage?
Oh, I have no idea, but there's a photo somewhere. There was like my glutes were just striated. It was insane.
Wow.
So I wish I got like body fat tested before and after. But if I was going to do one, I'd want to do like a DEXA scan, and the nearest one I think is like London to me. You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to just do like the calipers.
How much water manipulation did you do towards the end?
Zero. So I didn't do any
Just
manipulation to
cut,
like.
right, leading into it.
Yeah, so what we did was the only thing we manipulated very smallly was my carbohydrates.
Mhm.
So I front loaded my carbohydrate load to the start of the week, and then I tapered them off into the show. But because I was ready early, because I was meant to do a show 3 months later, but I was actually ready really early. So what we did was we found another show which was say like a month away, and then I peak week. I'm kind of like I'm the only thing I would manipulate is just having more carbohydrates. I'll keep water and sodium the same. So what I did was just do a mock peak up. So I had more carbohydrates for like over the first 3 days, and
Mhm.
then I just monitored to see how I was looking throughout the week. And then like by the Saturday, I was like looking my best. So I just replicated that the week of the show, and I did a show 3 months early.
Wow. Wow. Uh,
Yeah.
do you, because I mean, I have seen it with the amount of bodybuilders that have issues with food, right? Like so many of them have disordered eating. Um, is there a way people can compete in bodybuilding and not create those? And I mean, not everyone has it, but I see a wide range. And the people that do have it, like when they're done competing, it's like, boom, weight city, you know?
Yeah. So I would say it can cause a lot of problems, and I would say a lot of bodybuilders do have eating disorders. But the thing is, when you do a bodybuilding show, if you want to win anyway, it is very extreme.
Yeah.
Very extreme. Like it's kind of like the opposite end of the spectrum where you have like someone who's like morbidly obese, someone who's competing in bodybuilding. You know,
Right.
they both experience the same symptoms. They're both always hungry. They both have low energy, like low libido. Like they have all the same symptoms, just they look different. You know, and like the bodybuilder may, on face value, look really good, but he's dying inside. You know, so
Right.
and it does cause a lot of problems. That's why you'll see people like rebounding weight very fast after the show. They'll have like a post show cheat meal, that sort of thing. So because like they've just been starving for 20 weeks or so, like my prep was 20 weeks. So and by the end of it, I was starving. So and
Wow.
I'll openly admit, if I could go back, I would do my what I did after the show, where like I went for a big feed after, I would do that differently next time. You definitely become more food focused.
Hmm. Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
but like for the clients I deal with now, like I don't have one who's doing a bodybuilding show.
Mhm.
So and it would have to be kind of like a very good reason if I was going to like have a client like that.
Someone, yeah.
You know,
I
like
felt
our
like if I was like, "Hey, Ryan," you'd give me
like.
solid advice in order to do one.
Yeah, it was like what I would like all our clients through like the company and stuff now, they're all just kind of like busy people, you know?
Yeah.
They're busy people who just want to like improve their health or lose some body fat. They don't want to go to the extreme of bodybuilding stage team because ultimately it's not sustainable, right? In my opinion, you have to find that sweet spot, we'll call it, where you've got enough food for flexibility, you like the way you look, and your productivity is highest, right? So, and that's where I would say you've integrated it into your lifestyle rather than interjected it.
Yeah. Is that where you got the name the Welsh Dragon, or was it before?
No, no. It was after that. It was when I first started working for the first company, Trevor Cash Nutrition. One of my clients called me that, the Welsh Dragon, and it just stuck. Everyone just started calling me it after. So, so that's the reason. And I kind of enjoyed it. I'll be honest. I've been called far worse nicknames. So, and it's just stuck ever since.
I feel like if you're called the Welsh Dragon, you should have a dragon tattooed on your back. So when you take your shirt off and it says like Welsh,
Dude,
and then there's a dragon or like a flag or something on the back.
Yeah, like there's a very famous Welsh bodybuilder who's extremely successful, like Flex Lewis.
Hmm.
Um, and obviously, I couldn't take the Welsh dragon. He would be the Welsh dragon of bodybuilding, you know?
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
know Flex Lewis?
I've heard the name, but I'm not super familiar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he would be the Welsh dragon of bodybuilding. So it wouldn't be me.
That's awesome. What do you think? Like, we're talking about food. We're talking about getting to a certain weight prior to the stage. But I feel like there's something similar that happens with like fighting, right? Like where you got to make a certain weight, and they do a lot of manipulation right before in order to do it, which I have seen can be like quite dangerous. Not necessarily for them in terms of a disordered eating, but from an actual performance standpoint, um, where it's almost like you should have like a weigh in a week before so that they can reintegrate all their food, or give them time so that they are appropriately prepared for their fight. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, so like with fighting classes, like where you have to make weight. Now, I could be wrong on this because obviously I don't deal with like anyone who's making weight at the moment, so I don't really know the rules. But I believe in like some sports now, there's a delay between the weigh-in and the actual fight, rather than like weighing in the morning of and then going to fight. Because if you've got to dehydrate, because people want to be their biggest, right? When
Right.
they're like in fighting sports, etc. So when if they were, I think people were getting like there were a lot of bad things going on, I'll say, when people like weighing in the morning, then going to fight. So they kind of like changed the rules where you may weigh in the day before and then you've got like 24 or 48 hours to like rehydrate, reincorporate some food before you actually go into the fight, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So like I wouldn't recommend cutting weight, like cutting water weight and stuff, like saying and then weighing in the morning, then going to fight in the afternoon for sure. So, and I believe there were some things that happened, like in certain sports, where people were like getting badly injured or like passing out or whatnot. So they were giving them time then to like rehydrate, refuel up before they could go into like their sports.
Do you think 24 hours is enough?
I think that's what they do in some sports, like 24 to 48 hours.
Right, but is that enough time to rehydrate, you think?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I think that's
I
enough.
wasn't sure. One of the things you mentioned was like two extremes, right? Where you had someone who's like morbidly obese on one end, who's always hungry, and then the bodybuilder who's always hungry. So I wanted to talk about the morbidly obese person that is always hungry. Um, a lot of times, like I find I have a couple of clients that come into the program, and they're in desperate need of help, right? And we start looking at their food, and you'd be shocked to see how little they actually eat. Have you experienced that as well?
I sure have. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know like it blows some people's minds because they don't understand how someone, very, very, very overweight could eat such little food. And I know you and I have kind of chatted in the past about how like um increasing your energy intake will give you the ability to get up, and or like increasing your calories will give you the ability to increase your energy so that you can actually start moving. Any other thoughts to like how that can happen to where someone can gain so much weight and then end up eating so little?
For sure. So like when I always get clients like that, I always like put tasks in place where send me pictures of everything you consume. Because often or not, there's a knowledge gap between what they think they're eating and what they are actually eating,
Right.
you know? So, and that's where I'll always go. Because if we take whenever we get like a client originally, we'll always just say, just currently track what you're doing. But if you have someone who's saying, let's say morbidly obese, but they're reporting like 1,200 calories, then it's very unlikely that that is the case. So like our goal is like to develop their skills in tracking their food so that they can get more accurate and find out what they're actually eating, you know?
Yeah, for
So like,
sure.
and that's where our focus would be in terms of like, okay, well, send me pictures of everything you're eating, so like putting those tasks in place and having conversations with those clients saying, okay, well, how did you track that? Did you weigh that on a food scale? So over time they will get more accurate, and then that knowledge gap between what they thought they were eating and what they're actually eating will get closer. So then you'll actually find out eventually what they're truly eating to maintain their current weight, you know
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you and I have talked about that in the past, where increasing someone's caloric target will give them the freedom to track more accurately.
For sure, like over time, like that's where I know, like, like when people will, like, we've had clients before where they'll report like 1,200 calories or whatnot, and they may be weighing, let's say, I know, 250 pounds. Then it's kind of like we'll just start increasing their food throughout the program, because over time, really, they may be eating, say, 3,000, and then by the time we've developed their skills, they may be, say, 2,500 calories, but they were eating like three and a half before. So you've kind of met them in the middle, right?
Right.
So it's like, okay, now we're actually eating the amount that we're saying.
Yeah.
Because realistically, no one's getting morbidly obese eating, say, like 1,200 calories.
Yeah. I think oftentimes too, you find out that like people have created all these restrictions in their head around food, not restrictions, maybe like safeguards to where they lie to themselves about, what calories they're actually putting into their mouth, right? Uh, which ends up lying to others. And then when it's time to go ahead and fix that, like I feel like it's almost become habit, that muscle memory, to just, not have the ability to recall everything you put in your mouth. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I'll always say take photos of everything, because pictures don't lie, right? Everything,
Right.
like, pictures paint 1,000 words. And like, you have some people which will generally not know that some foods may contain calories. Like, I've had clients where they may not track the oil that they cook their food in, or like the snacks. Like snacks, they may just be like, it's only like an handful of nuts. We'll just leave that go. But like, some people may actually be doing it intentionally as well. So
If you
like
do a
our job.
handful of nuts 5 times a day, that ends up being like 500 calories.
Exactly, right. But like, I've had clients who think just like a handful of nuts is kind of like 20 calories. Oh, that doesn't matter. So, and this is where we increase their awareness over the beginning of the program. It's like, oh no, like this handful of nuts, weigh her on a scale. Okay, look, this is how much that is. And it's like, oh, geez. Like, the first part is always increasing someone's awareness, like developing their skills, increasing their awareness, so that they effectively develop, like, they become more aware of what they're consuming, essentially. So like, in this example, what they once thought was 1,200 calories is now, say, 3,000, 3,500.
Yeah.
And then when they're at that level, then you're in a position where you can start making changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, what do you think? How much do you think external factors play in the ability to lose weight? In terms of, because it's been my experience that it's basically the outside of water retention. You're either in a caloric deficit or you're not, right? To lose weight, like where hormones actually don't play that much into it. Stress. I mean, stress plays into water retention, but the ability to lose weight. I mean, what are your thoughts in
I
terms of
think
outside of calorie deficit?
I think environment is huge,
Mhm.
and I think in terms of like how people deal with stress is huge as well, like their coping mechanisms. So like, the reality is, whether someone's in a caloric deficit or not will dictate whether they lose weight or not. But their external factors, like their environment, how they respond to stress, plays a huge role in that, because some people may respond to stress and their coping mechanism may be food, right? And then they go home and they got all their favorite snacks in the cupboard. You just, like, there's only so much willpower you have, and eventually,
Right.
like, willpower will win at some point. So it's kind of like setting your environment up for success, and that includes the people in the household as well. So like, the people you're closest to, if they are not on board in terms of like supporting you, etc. If you come home and like your partner's like, oh, come on, just have this one takeaway, like, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle. You know, so like, having your environment set up for success is absolutely crucial. Like, how you deal with stress is really, really crucial, because a lot of people do use like food, alcohol, etc. to cope with stress. So finding other coping mechanisms to deal with that as well is huge, and the people you're closest to, having them on board.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think that's one of the most important things, is having the people that either that you live with or your friends or your inner circle, um, having the knowledge that you're actually doing this transformation in your life, because it could take some comments here, a little bit of food pushing here, and the next thing you know, you're off the rails.
Yeah, for sure. Like imagine like you've got like if you're sad or something, let's say you're upset about something, you go and speak to your best friend and like you're on this journey and they go, oh, let's go out for some food and some drinks, make you feel better. It's
Right.
like, oh, what instant conflict there. It's like, well, I'm on this journey. This is how I've asked you to best support me. And like, is the person itself is their choice whether they actually go out for the food or drinks or not. Is totally their own choice. But it doesn't help if someone's pushing you, right? It could be a lot easier if you remove all the snacks out of your environment. If your friends are on board, knowing exactly how they can best support you as well in this journey. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, this is what I'm doing. This is how you can best support me. Are you on board? And like, if your friends are true friends, they'll say yes, right? So like on the weekends when you go and spend time with them, you may go, I know, and do an activity rather than going out for food and drinks.
Yeah, I
So
try, it's difficult because in my clients that are outside of New Orleans, I don't really have this issue. But in New Orleans, like our culture is built so much around food and drink, that I see that all the time with single adults clients. It's like every date is a restaurant, or drinks with friends and stuff like that. And I push them to try to find activities all the time that are not food related. But it's interesting how much like our culture is so tied to food.
yeah, for sure. And like I would say like it's a skill. It's a skill being able to like still progress towards like your intentions, whatever they are, whether that's like fat loss, which is a very common one, and going out and having drinks and food, etc. So like I would encourage in the beginning to like start building momentum first, even if you just abstain from those things for like a short period of time, 1 week, 2 weeks, and then you take on that new skill, like vaccinating yourself to those temptations, going out and eating food, going out and having a drink and staying on plan. And like going with friends that you know will support you as well. Like go like put yourself in those situations on purpose so that when they do come up on accident, like birthdays, etc., you've already experienced it, you know how to deal with it.
Yeah, I remember when I decided that I wanted to have an 8 pack and look like
Yeah.
a superhero.
You've got one. You've got one.
But when I made that decision, I was telling somebody this the other day. I think I spent at least 3 months, maybe more, where I controlled every single meal. I didn't go out to eat. I didn't drink. And it was like I needed to build up this momentum, but really get to a place where I did the work. Now it's easier to maintain,
For
right? And
sure.
you can start like, okay, once every couple of weeks, I can go out and have a meal, come back. And then the further I got along, which is now like a couple of years later, I could go off for, well, you and I talk, I could go off for like 7, 8 days, come back and be fine.
Yeah, for sure. And
Right.
like, because you've developed that skill in learning how to manage it, right? And that's the thing is that like when these people go out, is it like having the desire to say, okay, well, I'm happy to go out and eat food, and I'm going to choose the grilled meat and vegetables versus the burger. So if you go and eat out, say 3 times on the weekend, you may have the one meal where you have the burger and fries or whatever it may be, and then the other two you
Right.
choose reasonable choices. But like a lot of people don't have that skill set to begin with, so like allowing them to find those quick wins in the beginning of the program, like just abstain from these events, build some momentum, and then develop that skill in terms of putting yourself in these situations on purpose where temptation is high and learning to manage them.
Right. And I think the further you get away from, or like the more you're in that sacrificial first few months, right? Um, it makes it easier to go out and then get back into your own bubble, basically, right? Whereas if you do it right from the start, I feel like every time could become a slippery slope. And then you just put
Yeah.
yourself back into the same situation you always were. But I find it interesting because I often see, you know, people don't want to make a lot of changes in the beginning, right? Like, and it's well, it's just easier if I go out.
Yeah, for
And,
sure.
and it's like you can make progress, just how long do you want it to take?
Yeah, for sure. And like you will have some people who are not willing to change. Like in order to change, you have to change something, right? So, and like I'm a big fan of like meeting people where they currently are, like in their journey and walking through it together. And it's like, okay, well, if you're not willing to like stop eating out for say a week, then it's like, okay, well, when you go out, what changes are you willing to make? What can you do? rather than saying, what can't you do? What can you do during these times? Are you willing to choose the grilled chicken salad over the burger and fries when you go out to eat? So like there'll always be something you can do. Is just when you're first starting something and you're going out drinking and eating every weekend, it's very hard to make those changes.
Yeah.
Rather than just looking for those quick wins, building momentum from the get-go, and then developing the skills, putting yourself in those situations on purpose whilst you're building momentum and learning to deal with those scenarios.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing people forget is, especially if you're in a weighing and tracking phase, is no matter how much you guess, unless you have your scale with you at the restaurant, and even if you have your scale with you at your restaurant, you're not in the kitchen. You don't know how the full ingredient list, how much oil is being put in this stuff. And I just think if you repeatedly do it, you're putting yourself in a bad situation to be able to reach your goal.
Yeah, it's definitely a suboptimal scenario to be in to make progress. And one of the good things why I like to build momentum from the get-go, because like you said, when you're learning the skill of tracking your food, increasing your awareness of what a portion size actually looks like, oh, this is what a portion of peanut butter actually looks like. When you then go to developing the skill of eating out at restaurants, let's say you order chicken, rice, and veggies, when you guesstimate the portion size of those foods, you'll have a much better idea because your awareness has been increased from when you've been tracking your food at home. You're like, oh, yeah, that's roughly around about 300 grams of chicken, rather than just going out for food from the get-go and be like, oh, I have no idea what that is. So it's like increasing your awareness from the start, seeing what a portion size actually really is, sets you up for success when you put yourself in those situations on purpose. And let's be fair, there'll always be celebrations, right? Every single week. And so it's not as if you're going to miss anything. And if it's not a celebration, you'll create one, so it's not as if you're missing out.
You can also go enjoy, get some soda water, and
Yeah.
and have a good time. Like it's no different than maybe if you were an alcoholic.
For sure. And like I would say in this situation as well, is like, yes, you can still go out and eat if you want to from the get-go, but it's much more difficult to choose the chicken salad then,
Right.
It's much easier to make reasonable choices once you've already built momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. How often do you see where you set a target for someone, and they are hitting it, but not losing weight?
Quite often, yes,
Yeah.
quite often. But then that's when I'll have the conversation with them. Is it because I'll always say to the client, the most important thing is our 100% honesty. Because my last resort is making an adjustment to someone's food. I'll always want to make sure that we're controlling all variables first. So it's like, okay, well, did you weigh and measure all your meals this week? Did you eat out at any point in time? Was anything guesstimated? So I'll look at all the other variables first to make sure all their habits and behaviors are in check before we'll reduce their food. Because there will be a time that people will hit a plateau and you will need to make an adjustment, but that's my last resort. I'll always make sure everything else is in check first.
You and I have talked often about increasing their calories in order to increase the accuracy. We talked about that earlier. Have you ever just like put the squeeze on someone and cut it down to like 900, 1,000 calories? Have you ever done anything like that?
I've had females where I've put them on sub 1,000 calories.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if I have like a male client, I would question them, saying like I would question their accuracy of their data first.
Mm-hmm.
Because there ain't many males that wouldn't be losing, say, on like 1,200 calories.
Yeah.
So but I've had some females, they do generally have to go low food to get lean. They, for multiple reasons. They're smaller, less muscle mass. So there are multiple reasons for that. They just need less food.
Yeah. Yeah. And also oftentimes, like, I think they even, if they're the type of person that is saying that, they feel full or 1,300 calories is a lot, that could be one of those types of persons.
Yeah, if they're feeling full when they're in a fat loss phase, like being hungry comes with the territory. You will get hungry at some point, and that's another telltale sign as well. Like if you have someone who's like not making any progress at all and they're eating very low food and they're not hungry, the chances are they're probably not eating that amount of food.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with
And
you.
and that's then the coach's goal to find out what's going on essentially.
Mhm.
And if you have like a good rapport with that client, then you're in a much better position to find out what's going on and come up with a solution for it.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap it up with this. Okay. I feel, paying attention to the nutrition world as a whole, that in 2022, we're in much better shape than maybe COVID notwithstanding, like the last 5 years in terms of fad diets. I feel like people are starting to back off of that. People are starting to back off what intermittent fasting really does, which is calorie restriction,
Yeah.
right? The keto stuff, the low carb stuff. I feel like have you noticed that as well?
Kind of, yes, but I do think a lot of people are still moving towards like these fad diet approaches. What I do think people are becoming more aware of is the fact that they know the reason why these fad diets work, right? Because the reality is whether you go keto, low carb,
Right.
fasting, juice diet, like I can't even keep it, I don't even know what most of them are these days. I've stopped looking. But the reality is they all lead to the same thing, right? Calorie deficit, cutting
Yeah.
out large food groups, reducing the time time window that you're eating. They all lead to the same thing. Whereas previously, people would think this actual fad, there was something special about this actual fad diet, and they'd miss why it's working. Now they actually know that okay, this diet is working because it's a calorie deficit. So they're becoming more knowledgeable as a result of that.
Yeah, and I feel like the tables start to turn a little bit on like, hey, this certain diet is beneficial for longevity and health, which is a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So like people are becoming more aware.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right, Ryan, I'm gonna let you get to your kids' gymnastics class.
Yes, kids gymnastic class. Still got 10 minutes.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So, anything else you'd love to tell anybody? Anything crazy you've seen nutrition wise, or give us a tip for anyone sitting at home?
Great question. What I would say, don't wait to start your journey. That's what I would say. Don't waste any more time. Dive straight in and go for it.
I see it all the time. Ryan, thank you, man. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.
No problem at all. Have a great day.
Bye.